No, I won't. I won't.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Wow. Tom said it might be crowded, and I kind of believed him, but this is more than I expected. Thank you so much. Well, welcome to our Historical Society General Meeting and joint program with the library. I'm Susan James, Library Manager of the library and also board member of the Historical Society. I just have a few thank yous and some events to mention. Of course, I'd like to thank Tom Kelly for speaking tonight and for donating his honorarium to the library. It's very nice of him. As a thank you from the Historical Society, we would like to make a donation to Hospice House, where Tom is a volunteer. It'll be in his name. Let's see, I'd like to thank the board for help with refreshments and setup, actually the whole crowd for help with setup. And I have a list of our board members. I know some were not able to make it tonight and they regretted it. Carolyn Person, our acting president, is away. She had hoped to come, but we have Mary June, if you could just raise your hands. And Bernie Arbick is here.
Bernie's
there he
his
is.
granddaughter's basketball.
Oh, actually, he did make it. He's in the back. Let's see. We have Bob Aldrich is here. Oh, there you are. And let's see. Patty Olson. Oh, there she is. And Karen Sabatine. Okay. Did I miss anyone? All right. Thank you for coming and helping. Next week, we have open houses at our building at 115 Ashman Street during the Downtown Ice Festival. So we'll have our train displays and layouts available on Friday, next Friday from 5 to 7, and Saturday from 11 to 4. So do stop by. That was a very popular event before Christmas, and we're continuing it. And thanks to Gil Zimbalist and Dennis Hank for their setups. Our gift shop at 115 Ashman is closed until May 15th, except during office hours, special events, and by appointment. Research and office hours are in the back of the building on most Mondays and Fridays, so you're welcome to stop by, but you may want to call first. As far as library events, we have our winter farmers market every Saturday morning. This Saturday we have a family movie, Finding Dory, at 1 o'clock. And next Tuesday, Emily Weber, who just entered, will be speaking for the Sioux Naturalists of Ontario and Michigan on Isle Royal Wolf and Moose Study, A Summer in the Life of a Research Assistant. So that's next Tuesday at 7. And then we have our Poetry Cafe next Thursday at 7 with Julie Brooks Barber, Lake State professor, with her new book. Our other events are in our newsletter, and unfortunately I didn't bring enough newsletters, so if you would like to receive one, just please sign your name and address there, and we'll send one to you. It's also on our website. And you can also find membership information there, as well as books for sale, etc. Tom Kelly is a retired professor of sociology and psychology from Lake Superior State University. Here at the library, he's been a featured poet at our Poetry Cafe, and he is a member of the Baylis Book Club. In July 1956, he was aboard the Italian passenger liner Andrea Doria, having completed 4 years of study in Rome, where he was ordained as a priest. Tonight, he will speak about the demise of the Andrea Doria, an Italian post-war dream destroyed that he experienced firsthand. His talk reminds us of the importance of preserving oral histories, and if you have any stories you'd like to share with us, please speak to a board member or check our newsletter where we have an article on that. Tom has a display of books and DVDs, and we'll talk to you more about that later. Please welcome Tom Kelly.
Listen, I've got a list I want to pass around. I'm going to run for mayor. This is about an hour to talk. That's why I'm worried about all you people back there. But let's say, first of all, I was 52 to 56. I was sent from the Diocese of Chicago to the North American College, which all of the bishops of America have come together and established. The new one is in Vatican City, but we're across the valley from the cathedral itself. But so I went after my philosophy in Chicago, I went to North American College, and it's all these peoples, and each bishop was allowed one, and it was really a wonderful place. And during the summer, we'd go up to the Alban Hills, you know, because of course we couldn't be in that hot summer. But so it was, and we traveled a little bit, so and that'll fit in a little bit. But anyways, so after I finished my work, I decided that I was going to go home on a ship. Now, by the way, you know, I came over on the USS Constitution. My parents came over for my ordination on a the USS America or something like that. You know, the Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeths, wherever, all over the place. In fact, there's probably about 50 transatlantic ships at that time. Now, I named this talk kind of Demise of a Dream because, you know, the Italians, first of all, this ship was built in Genoa. And Genoa, for centuries, was a city-state, and famous for its sea power. In fact, Andrea Doria was a 16th century buccaneer, in a sense, that fought the French, the Spanish, and the Barbary buccaneers, pirates. And so, and they're famous for shipbuilding. You know, it's up in the Aegean Sea where the Italian Riviera kind of meets the French Riviera. And of course, Christopher Columbus was the other great one. And so, the war was a bad experience for the Italians. You know, if you remember, you know, they got out quickly, and then it was loaded with German soldiers, and even in Rome there was a terrible massacre of Italians because they attacked the military convoy of the Germans, and then no love lost there. So when they did get out, they scuttled their fleet, and they at the end of the war they had to make reparations, had to give a lot of their ships away because they're on the losing side. So they decided, we are going to be the queen of the seas again, and we're going to name them after our great admirals, Andrea Doria and Christopher Columbus, who was certainly one of the great admirals. So it was going to be the recreation of what they had before the war, and the ship was recognized by most people, the Andrea Doria, as the most beautiful ship. It wasn't the largest ship, but the most beautiful ship. Loaded with artwork and all sorts of things like that. I'm going to get a drink of water.
Right here. Right there. Right here behind you. We got one for you, right?
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Looking out for you,
So anyway, in the first class, there was a huge bronze statue of Andrea Doria. Huge. They have a beautiful chapel there. And of course, having been ordained, there were 3 other Chicago priests there. They had gone to graduate school, which is called the Chicago House. So, but we were on one of them. Ray Getter was a cabin mate of mine. In fact, he later on became an auxiliary bishop of Chicago. But so it was a really. Well, thanks. Need water.
He has so much to say.
So, it was the pride of the Italian fleet. Now, when I signed up, it's the Andrea Doria, that's great. So I went by myself because they came from the Chicago House. I got an apartment near the pier. And as always, you'll find out how bad micromanaging is. So I said to myself, my steamer trunk. Got my steamer trunk. What was in that? Well, I became very interested in the Roman Forum when I was there. And so I collected books, you know, all this onion skin over pictures. Paternoster Row in London. I sent back a load of books. It was almost all books. So, but it was kind of a treasure too. So most of them were ancient sort of things. So I thought to myself, Tom, I'm going down to the pier, find a facchino, a steward, and see if that's on the boat. Because why? Well, when I get to New York, I can travel on the train, excess luggage, and it's going to be cheaper. So, So I went around, come on, I want to find it. Ah, there's my trunk. Put it right on that ship, you know. And so, you know, micromanaging, yeah. So anyway, so that's where, it still is. So the Andrea Doria, it was 29,000 tons, got about 24 knots. It was almost about 700 foot long, 695. And you know, when you think of the ships that go through here, you wonder, boy, the Andrea, they look so big, but it's a superstructure, I think. You know, we have 1,000 footers coming here, and that's not even as long as the Andrea Doria is not that long. And then the Stockholm was 560 feet long and 15,000 tons, so it was a real mismanaged kind of accident. But at any rate, we shoved off, and went through the Mediterranean, got to Gibraltar. We stopped there for a while. Went to the Azores. I love the Azores. And then we got into the Gulf Stream. And you know, as a historian, I taught history in high school. The Gulf Stream, when pilgrims and all the first occupants of North America came, they followed the Gulf Stream. First of all, there was the prevailing wind, but the blue water of the Gulf Stream is just very beautiful. So every day you get out there and just imagine how great this is. By the way, I was saying there was 3 classes, which a lot of places don't have now. First of all, there was first class, which was kind of up above. And I think there are 190 in that. I was in cabin class with my friend Ray. I think there was 369. And then the tourist class, 693 people. Well, mostly Canadian, Italian immigrants, didn't speak too much English, and so it was we all had 3 pools. 2 of my Jesuit friends were down there, and so I would go down there often. And like we had a lounge and a ballroom. And if you want to write something, you just have the whole place to yourself. And I went down there and scrunching around, so I used to sneak them up for lunch once in a while, things like that. But it was, you know, very tight down there too, which will be very important later on when we see what happened. So, so the Gulf Stream was beautiful. So we went through the whole thing, and it was 7 days, and we were going to come into Nantucket. Now, Nantucket Lightship, sometimes called the Ambrose Lightship, is stationed there constantly because it's the Times Square of the Atlantic Ocean. Figure everyone coming out of New York and then spreading out, and so the Ambrose or Nantucket Lightship is right there. We had a great time there. At night we turned into bed about 11 o'clock. So, by the way, you know, the first day, if you've been on a trip anyplace on a boat, you know this happens. Second day, we're going to go to our muster station. Put on your Mae West jackets and we'll take your picture, you know. And so we had to go up about 3 decks to the promenade deck, which was on the port side. And it was struck by later on the starboard side, the port side. It was an enclosed deck. In other words, the promenade beds usually are. You could open the windows with difficulty. They had large curtains so you could pull the curtain back, you know, and then deck chairs, which seemed fine, but which later on turned to be a real problem because, you know, if a ship is listing 15 degrees against you, all those deck chairs are piled up, and then the curtain is like a plumb line. I didn't tell anybody that, but that's what he said there. So it was really a situation. But anyway, so we all came down, and there was the last day, and we thought we'd go to bed early. So we got into bed, and all of a sudden, you know, if you've ever been in a car accident, the tinny sound, well, when you have 29,000 tons moving at probably 26 knots, hitting something that's doing the same, it's just, there's no any sound of it. As the Stockholm went in 44 feet. And now I should say, the Andrea Doria was well built. It had a double keel, double bottom. It had, we'll talk about the radar and things like that later on. It was airtight, but only eight airtight positions, so they could control the water. But not above B deck, because they figure, well, you'd have to have a 15-degree list before you'd have to worry about B deck. In other words, so at any rate, so that became a problem later on. So we get up, and I don't know, someone would say, asked me, were you afraid? Well, this is a strange thing. When I was in high school, for 5 years in a minor seminary, I was a lifeguard. Then I was a lifeguard instructor. When I got to Rome, all the national colleges used to come to our Olympic pool, and we'd have swimming meets, and I was the backstroker. So, water to me was just, so I actually thought to myself, first of all, I thought maybe we hit an iceberg. That's Titanic. That's probably unlikely, but so I said, well, we're in our pajamas, so I figure I'm going to put my pants, my black pants, and my jacket over, but I won't put my socks on because I might have to kick off my shoes in the water. And I said, I'm going to get my passport. By the way, when I finally arrived in New York, the customs said, you have your what? In fact, when Bill Hoffer, who wrote the first book, came up here for a couple of days, and he wanted a picture of me, so I turned over my passport, which, Tom, I probably could have got money for. I'm sorry, but so then in the book they have my little picture. I was 22-year-old then. I was 26-year-old when I was on the ship. So it was. So anyway, and I think we're ready, and we put on our jackets. So we open the door. Here are people in night clothes running. A little bit of oil in the air, a little aroma and things like that, running like crazy. So, okay, well, we have to go up 3 decks. Well, you see the list right away was about 6. If you, that's why you see on most military, any boats, for sailors, they have these round ladders, because you get bounced around. So I was going along, I remember one of the Italian personality, he said, sir, don't worry, we will not sink. We're unsinkable. Well, I said, the Titanic and the Lusitania. So, okay, well, he's doing his job. So we got up there. And now I'm trying to figure out, we had 367, but probably all these other tourists were over, not the tourists, the cabin people were on the other side. But I figure there must have been close to 200 people there. So we get up there, hardly any of them had their life jackets. So Ray and I say, hey, let's go down and see if we can find us going down. So I think 2 other gentlemen, it's interesting, in class I used to say, in crisis situations, it's really interesting. Like, I used to, some of the students that were EMT in my class, and they'd have come from a bad accident, and I'd say, how do you operate it? We're trained, we're just trained. And so what happens, I think if people like EMTs, police officers, firemen, they have something to do in a crisis. And sadly, priests too. So, at any rate, so here we go. We go down, and this I'll never forget. There's opening cabins. There are expensive rich jewelry, money, but they left that behind. We're all poor in a shipwreck. So open it up, sure enough. So maybe you could carry 5 or 6 of them. I really don't know how many times we went up and down. I just know it became harder and harder to know if you've been there, or the other 2, 3 guys had been there and things like that. So finally we figured it's pretty well done. And when I told Bill Hoffer this, he said, "You don't want me to put this in the book?" And I said, yeah, put the other stuff down. Anyway, we're standing around, and this has bugged me for years. I'm standing there, and an Italian man comes up and doesn't say a word, but stands next to me. He doesn't have this life jacket. And I ignored him. I ran out of whatever it was I had. So that's why there's a, when I arrived home, Faye Flynn, who was a big evening program at WGN, and they took a picture of my mother and I was like, my mother and dad and I was like, a hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he is braver 5 minutes longer. 6 before. And Hopper, why do you want to put that in? By the way, well, I'll tell you about it later. But I was trained. I mean, that's what people, U.S. policemen or firemen. Yeah, we're trained. And even they go off on these missions in the military and you find out they train 5 and 6 double time so that you just act like an automaton. You know what to do. And that, boy, I realize that now, how that's so important, training, so you know what you're going to do and you know the answers to certain things. So anyway, so what are we going to do? First of all, we're not on the stricken side, so we have no idea what's going on. And there's broken communications on the Italian. And what are we going to do? So people are sitting down. They're getting their rosaries out, and people are coming and say, when you're in a situation like that, Marines on the ship going to Guadalcanal, a priest can give general absolution. It was a whole bunch at once. And so people come up to me, I say your act of contrition, And then I group say your act of contrition. And then friends that I met, the Lutheran Presbyterian, hey, Father Tom, you do something for me? You sorry for sin? Yeah. And then I realized, see, that was at 11:30. We passed then to the next day. I said, this is the feast of Saint Anne, of the Mother, of the Blessed Mother. And this is a favorite attempt. Hey, oh, they're going to town on all that. So they really did calm down. It's amazing. We were on there 3.5 hours, and really not knowing, but they kind of, okay, we'll wait. I remember once some of the women crew came by with banjos. It was just an Italian ship, and they started ding, 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 and everybody's kind of looking at it. And finally, one guy said, well, we all, hey, basta, I'm not. See, if you watch the movie on Titanic, don't you? So another time I thought, I'm going to go, the lounge was in between. So I went into the lounge and I could see people getting into boats on the other side. And see, this is what happened. The stricken side, they were able to get the boats down. However, they couldn't lower them to the promenade. They had to put them all the way down in the water. Remember, here you're like a cave. Here's the boat, here's the water. And then that's what they were going down on Jacob's ladder or ropes. Not too many people on ropes. Jacob's ladder is the rope with the board on it that you see on the side of the ship. Of course, they're meant to be strengthened by the keel. But these are flying in the air. But anyway, and I saw them go, okay. But I never realized they had to look. They couldn't. They see the promenade deck. You get in, you go down. They couldn't do that, so they had to bring them down, and they had people And that, one of the reasons when divers go down, they find all these ladders and ropes, and it's webbed all over the place. You know, it's in 240 feet of water, as Tom was saying, and usually they hit between 160 and 180 is dangerous. In fact, Jim Bright, who went down there 100 times, he was going to go down for the 50th anniversary. We had a 50th anniversary, and we all got a medallion. You can give up and see it. It says, coraggio, courage, onore, honor, justizia, justice, valore, bravery. You know? But at any rate, where was I? I used to have to do this in college, guys. How did I get here? Well, I went and I saw him going down. So there's a sailor there smoking. He's sitting on the floor, and what's happening is the furniture is sliding away from the high type down to, and you think every couch that goes down, that's going to be the thing that tips to go. And then when I was in there, there was a bandstand there. The cymbals broke loose. What's the noise you're going to make? So he's smoking. So I said to him in Italian, I don't think you should be smoking. It was oily in the air. Fanente. He said, vabbè. And I know he was still there later. By the way, that was by the way, two of the nuns, Italian nuns that were in the third class, you know, they came to Mass every day. And they never should. I think they were killed in the impact. We'll talk about that a little bit, but it did. So anyway, and this is a book written by a teenager who was on the boat, who for the 50th anniversary redid the whole study and everything, and also looked at the aftermath of the court cases. Although Lloyd's of London insured both of them, so there was not much of a problem really. They didn't want to blame anybody. But and she was a teenager, and she wrote this book, and she has something like one of the nuns that I had given I had given a life jacket to, and then she asked me, "Father, will you hear my confessions?" Well, I hear the confession, and she said in here, "But you know, anything about Tom, even though he was barefoot and crawling around, he had some dignity." The next curate was on the phone with me a lot before she wrote this. And my wife said, "You know, is she going to pay you?" And I said, "No, I'm not paying you." So at the last time I talked to her, she said, "Tom, I'm not going to pay you, but after all my research, everything that you said was true." So I just validated. You might think I'm telling a big fish story. but anyway, so by the way, it was a marvelous sort of thing. Oh, we'll talk about the collision in there. The marvelous sort of thing. Linda Morgan was in first class with her stepsister and her her grandfather in cabin 52. And when the collision took place, they came into 2, 3, 4, and 5. In other words, they came in 44 feet. It was like an inverted pyramid just under the bridge and everything. And it was first class that was mostly hit. And that's where, and the people that died, most of them died in that impact. In fact, so did 4 sailors on the Stockholm. They were personality, or they're just, you know, crew, and they were finished. They were the kitchen crew, and they were sleeping in the bow, and when they came in, and of course, 55 feet of that ship was all, but they're watertight, held on. In fact, we'll talk about that a little later, because I got on the ship that had done that. So, and suddenly, they're talking about saving us. So we're something to do. Now, the promenade deck, first, really difficult. First of all, there's probably close to a 15-degree list. And so all those chairs are out there, are piled up now where you could easily walk along the low end. And all the curtains are hanging down. And all these people, and we had to bring them all along this deck, and then the hatch, which they still call them hatches, that led out to the back deck, which was a rail that went around the pool there. You get them out to them, they could hold on to that. But the problem was, you couldn't walk, and you would fall into the chairs. So I don't know who figured it out, but we had to take off our shoes. That's why I was out my shoes. And women, they didn't have pantyhose and silk stockings. Had to take off the silk stockings. And then the guys, but this is true of kids too, the guys would run with them, and keep forward motion and shove them over to the door. In fact, we put a rope out the door then. There was a rope, there was a sailor's staircase right next to us. And so they could pull us. And then once they got out of that, they were fine. And so it was just, women and children first, and then we ended. And when we finally got out there ourselves, someone up above, an Italian sailor said, "Hey, we're finished here. You can come upstairs." That would have been the first class. So we tried to talk to people to come back, but they did. So a couple of us said, "Let's go up." And it was nice then to get in that thing, go up, and we were up above. And then I walked around, and then I saw it. It was all dark on our side. So while we were just sitting there, we saw a ship come by, a cruiser, come by and keep floating out all by itself. And we thought, what's that? Well, that was the Stockholm. They were afraid to turn on the engines for fire and things like that. But we didn't know what it was. It floated out to this dark ocean. So I came around. Here was the Ile de France. The Ile de France, big across the 3 stacks. And then, what's his name? Captain Raoul Baudrillard he's famous for this. He had left New York in the morning, was 3 hours ahead of us. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention this before. The reason this occurred was because tremendous fog. We were in fog all day long. In fact, before supper, I went out and looked down. Because it's nice at night, I couldn't even see the water. I thought, wow, this is well, what they say is the Labrador Current, which is cooler, meets the Gulf Stream, and it's often very much fogged in there. And so there are a lot of procedures that everybody knows you're supposed to follow in fog, as in the last few days around here, whiteouts and things like that. So where was I again? What?
Ile de France.
Oh, the Ile de France. Okay. So, and the Ile de France is that section of Paris on the Seine. It's beautiful. It's what Saint Notre Dame is and things like that. And it's the pride of the thing. And this guy's Nelson. And so what he did, here is the ship, and it was hit on the starboard side. So it's listing that way. He comes in to block any waves. By the way, when he arrived, suddenly the fog disappeared. It was 3 hours. It disappeared, and the water was calm. In fact, coming over, you rarely look down, and there aren't whitecaps around. But it was just, perfect. The fog was gone, and this perfect calm of the water was just there. And so he came in and he blocked things, and then it was just like da 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 da. Suddenly all this light and everything, and here are 11 Coast Guard cutters in there. 11 Coast Guard cutters. The Cape Ann, which was. And then the Sergeant Joseph Kelly was there. By the way, it's interesting. For years, when someone would come to this Coast Guard station, if they had been involved in all of that, they give me "Hey Tom, I saved you. I was." Oh, thanks. And they take me out to coffee. But it was a funny sort of thing. But anyway, so by the way, and before that. Some of the people, when they on the stricken side, people got out in boats and were whisked away. But they wound up 45% of the survivors, which include crew. I'll tell you about that later. They went to the Ile de France, and people in deluxe classes left them their own plane, invited them in to sleep overnight. I mean, as a result, this Posian, he's got more awards, and that year he got the award for again saving and rescuing and coming at full speed in fog and all that sort of thing. But anyway, by the way, you would wonder why these two ships with all the equipment. For example, they had radar, but it was a very primary kind of radar. They had a Loran, which is long range. They had magnetic compasses. They had a lot of stuff. In fact, after all the discussion, what happened, they thought if there was one, I don't know anything about it, if there was one bulb in the middle of the screen, they would have known. See, what you have to judge from radar, and you're supposed to, is size, distance, and speed. And afterwards in court, you find out that the third officer, who was Karsten's Johansson's, he wasn't. They were just, this was new, this stuff, and he didn't read it correctly. He misjudged. So in other words, like if you're passing a ship, I'm not a ship, but you pass port to port. That's what you're supposed to be doing, or starboard to starboard, and you know that you're supposed to do. Another thing, you're supposed to slow down in fog. Well, the Stockholm, up until almost maybe minutes before it hit, it hadn't been in fog, so it's coming into fog. Both of them were traveling too fast for fog. I mean, and it was just that, and of course, it's like the Edmund Fitzgerald, why didn't guy say in port, well, I'm supposed to get here, and unload something and things like that. And in fact, another thing is, when they came into the Andrea Doria, it came into empty oil tanks. And they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to fill it with ballast. But they don't do it. Why? It takes longer in port to clean the tanks in order to put in the oil, And so there's a lot of things that came out later, but I'll talk about that a little later. So now here we are. I moved up. By the way, I took off my shoes. I had my socks on. And I'm going up the thing, and I say, Tom, you've been out of the United States for 4 years and got shoes? I gotta get my shoes. Now, if I was thinking, I would have tied them, put them over my head, but I don't. I put them underneath my arm. So we get up there, and we're going around, and the line was pretty short when we got around there. And here we are, the Jacob's ladder. And there's a boat down there, but the guy is not holding it, the sailor. Then he started holding it, and it was my turn to go. So I get about halfway down, and he lets go of it, and my feet go above my head. I save my shoes. I got them home. I should have bronzed them, but anyway. So finally, I get down into I get down into the boat, not realizing it's a boat from the Stockholm. In other words, the Stockholm went in, 44 feet. And when he realized what was happening, he pulled out. Now, maybe if he hadn't pulled out, because what happened, the list became more than 15 degrees. It was above B deck. They couldn't cover it, and so that's when a half hour after the collision, Captain Piero Calamai, who was the famous captain, he had been 100 times had been across the ocean with this ship, and he's just like, those guys are just, they live for their passengers, things like that. He just was not on deck. He was on deck and he was doing, but the Stockholm guy wasn't, and so I think that's probably a problem too. And later on we'll see that some work that was done and established that pretty well what actually did happen, because there's no way that you really can tell what happened. So anyway, I get around, I get into the boat and find out it's the Stockholm. I didn't know what that meant. And the sailor, though, salutes me and says, "Good evening, sir. We're the ones who sank you." Now you're getting relaxed now, thinking, Tom saved, Wait. Well, first of all, when I say this to kids, or even some adults say to me, well, didn't you get to the water? You did that to me. And I said, I wish I just had put my foot down in it or something. So I was splashing around in the water, but it was dry as a bone. And we get into this big ship. It must be 60 people in it, and it has idiot sticks. In other words, not oars. It's like the little kiddie carts. There are 2 people who can sit there. I think there were 30 sections, and you move it, and the one screw turns, and you're off. So we're piling up. When I got in, I looked across, and almost all the stations were finished. By the way, one of the things that's real, that's what I was going to say, Captain Colomine, when he knew that they were shipping water over B deck, they said abandoned ship. He knew that they weren't going to make it. It stayed afloat for 11 and a half hours. That's what makes it saved, in the sense that we had a real chance to get off of the ship. So we're sitting there in this cave, the boat and the ocean and the lights in there and everything. And so we filled up, and a power boat came in, throws the rope and said, "We'll tow you." Oh, that'll be nice. Then they couldn't start the motor. So we threw back their rope and said, "We'll take this." And which way do we go? You go around behind the ship, the bow, and the aft, and move out. So we're doing that. And what happens? I've talked about this in class. This is a phenomenon that's right. It's post-disaster euphoria. You are the happiest person in the world. Why? Because you're not going to die. And all these people around you are wonderful. We're all in the same boat, And so anyway, we go around, and we're going out there very happy. All of a sudden, here is a tanker from a Dutch tanker coming in, and not wanting to get in all this activity over here because it might screw things up, is coming in the dark side, and we're out there. And there was no light on the boat, and the same got people smoked in because we had cigarette matches. So we tried to matches below it out, but one Swedish sailor struck the whole thing and flashed. But they were very close to us. When you're looking at a ship like that, you hope to see one light. But if you see 2, that's not good. But I mean, you want to see 2. If you see 1, it means it's coming right at you. And that's why they have those lights up there, so you can judge, where a ship is headed and things like that. So all of a sudden, post-disaster euphoria is gone. Another night like this, So, anyway, we're approaching. Finally, they can flash, and their side lights come on. By the way, the Andrea Doria too. The reason that it was also such a successful is because the generators are up above, and so the outside lights all stayed on, and so all the emergency lights. So we weren't in the dark anymore. That's what they learned from the Titanic and things like that. Put it up high where nobody else can reach it. So these Danish sailors, they lower their boarding ramp and things like that. And we didn't know what the Stockholm was at that time, by the way. And so we kind of take a vote and say, I gotta go on that greasy mess there, And we, not knowing, realizes some people lounging on the Ile de France, So we go out the ocean again. So we come up to the ship, and it was a Swedish ship, and there was a Lutheran chaplain there, and he somehow or other he knew who I was, so he said, Professor Father Kelly, we got 4 Spanish kids that are down there, all torn up. Can you do something for them? Well, I'm down into the what do they call it on board, the medicine place. Anyway, and one of them had died, but the other 3, and the Lutheran minister said to me, they talk about the religion, so I think they're baptized. So I thought, well, I conditionally baptized them. I conditionally gave them absolution, and they did all die. So they were, and it was the fact they were. Most of the other crew in the kitchen hadn't finished it, but they were finished, and they're up there, right in the place that they shouldn't be. So anyway, so here we are on the ship, and by the way, a great uproar comes from many people, because guess who is at least the equal of the passengers? The crew, Well, they aren't the crew, they're personality. they usually, they're working in a restaurant in Genoa, and they go aboard, and they have no other duty except in fire. I asked some of them, I said, in the case of a fire, we have a duty. Well, some of these people, we paid for this villa. You didn't. You stand back in line. You gotta be kidding, don't you? We're in the same boat, remember? So, but but they find, but so I think we had, the rescue, Stockholm rescued 32%, 45% went to the Ile de France, and then other members. So that, we had a lot of crew. But they were scared as we were. In fact, they were very adjacent to the boats, at that time. So they just got in them like everyone else, But at any rate, so I took a little trip upon, and I was sitting there, and went up to see the bow, and it was man, what did we get onto, But somehow or other, their bulkheading was just about right. And so then, in fact, the next morning they tried to go backwards. That didn't work. They went forward finally. But so they gave us a pillow and this was, the quota for the boat was something like 550, and we're almost 350 coming on board. But luckily, they just left port. They had our food. Even Baudrillard said, "Oh, we got plenty of food." We just left port, so they had a good old time. So I was sleeping under these big vents that you see that the letting air out. And I was sleeping away, and it started to rain. So we were just soaked and things like that. Went in for breakfast. And there were helicopters landing on the deck to take away some of the injured people. And then we sat there and watched the Andrea Doria, like a big rye piece of bread, just kind of turn over and sink. And it was, I was thinking, my chalice went down like that too. A friend of my parents, they lost a son, and they wanted to buy my chalice, and so they sent a diamond for it. And we used to send to an artist in Holland. You could send your own design, and it was a scallop type chalice. It had to be gold inside, but it was kind of burnished silver. And I had the crucifixion with Mary and John in it. And it said, Pro totius mundi salute, for the salvation of the whole world. And it was really gorgeous. But that was the last time I used it. In fact, I thought for a minute when I was leaving, I took my passport instead of my chalice, but I missed what am I going to do with that? It's down there someplace, and so anyway, and we're watching this, and I had grown friendly with a couple there, and he had survived too, and he's standing next to me, and when he's standing next to me, he collapses my arm, had a fatal heart attack, right? Right then, so there's okay. We're going to be taken into New York. We're the last ones there. In other words, we're 8 hours there, and it took us 48 hours to get there, And so, and there was kind of a, angst on board the ship too. But at any rate, during the first day, the Owasso cutter and the Tamaraco, or something like that, were right beside us, And so everybody said, "Hey, you got these Coast Guard cutters right out there." Next morning we got up, they were gone. We should write to the president. But it was just, they probably figured we're seaworthy. And we were 45 miles south of Nantucket, and we went down to 240 feet of water. I mentioned that before, but it's been very dangerous. It's very high currents down there, a lot of sharks. There's the Gunder hole. One of the divers put a hole in it so they could get in. One time they got into the purser's office, opening the purse. They had this on television, by the way. Opening the purse, they think they're going to find, if you've ever been on a ship, your valuables you can give to the purser, and they put it in the safe, and they're safe there, It was all rotted lira. That's all that was in there. But and a number of sailors have lost their, and it's kind of eerie because all those ropes and webs, like a web around it, And recently they said the deterioration, if you want proof of warming, the water is so warm there that it's deteriorating at a rate they've never seen metal deteriorate. It's just going to pieces down there, you know. So we've had, when I finally arrived, when we arrived finally, the last ship at Pier 48, what it was, it's like World War I and the sailors coming home. All the fire ships are out firing colored water on the decks of all the piers, photographers and helicopters everywhere. By the way, this is the best photograph thing you've ever seen. I mean, there's they were there minutes after he was at night, but when they got the sinking and everything else done, so there's no secret about it. Although, you know, since they didn't have their iPhones, there's nothing on board ship. That's the problem. So I went through customs, and again was surprised everybody with my passport. I was supposed to have a first mass back in Chicago, so I went. They flew me out. They didn't worry about excess baggage. They flew me out. This is the last thing that happened. Fahey Flynn, who used to have a famous program, you know, this is 1956, you know, where there was an hour of television, but there was a limousine outside my parents' home. I have a picture here of my parents greeting me. By the way, I do this. Oh, did I show you this before? Yeah. But they were great. They were great people, and so they gave up their son for 4 years. But when I got home, we got to take you down, you know. I was with my parents. Okay, my dad said, might as well go, you know. So I went down there. Fahey Flynn said, well, it reminds me of the media, although I like the media. They said, well, we understand the Italian sailors were the first off, and they left everybody alone on the ship. Woo, what are you talking about? I started to mention time after time that they were there to help me, helping me every way. And they're talking about personality. You're not talking about. So, anyways, I kind of became the hero of the Italian Catholic Federation. And so, Faye said, well, I guess we're wrong, you know. But the first thing you want to know, how come those Italians jumped off boats and things like that, you know? So, and then I had my first mass, and it was. The director of the seminary is perfect for him, talking about Jesus walking on the water. So anyway, so that's kind of the story. Now, there's a lot of other things afterwards. You know, they could have tried it in Sweden. They could have tried in Italy. The opposite would have lost. They tried it in New York State. And I was following it to Life magazine. By the way, they sent me a claim thing. And so I filled it out, and I think it was $2,400 or something like that. And one of my classmates, he called me when he had gotten home. We made a few side trips to Egypt, and Palestine, and Greece. I didn't tell you about that. So I wound up on that ship. But he said, "Hey, can you buy 3 Swiss watches? You know, this is 50s. I mean, you could buy a Swiss watch, a really good one, for about $40. I bought 3 of them for him. But I had claimed that on the thing. This is an interesting story. So I got this, and I said, I called him. I got reimbursed for that. Oh, okay. So I called, I forget the insurance company. And I said, you know, I claimed this $140, and I really don't deserve it. He said, hold on a minute. So I'm talking, who are you talking to? We're having a board meeting here, and we just took a vote saying, you can have your $140. We have never had a phone call like this. And then you find out some people were claiming $8,000, $12,000. By the way, the damages were something like $60 million. You know. By the way, that Stockholm was interesting. What happened to the Stockholm? It was bought by Pittsburgh Steel. They were grinded up, but they repaired it. Then it was sold to East Germany. It was Volkerfreundschaft, the people's boat. You know? And finally, some Italian bought it back again, maybe But of course, the Andrea, we meet. By the way, there's a museum at the Merchant Marine Academy in Long Island, and it's a beautiful place. I've been there. That's the 50th anniversary. I didn't go to that, but I've been there another time. And Captain Weir, David Weir, decided he was going to get at what happened, because what happened in the New York court, wishy-washy. Lloyd's of London was paying everything, so you didn't hear anything. They didn't want to put a black mark on anybody. But anyways, he did all sorts of simulation studies. He recorded, he got all the messages on fog from the Nantucket light ship and things like that, and he did all sorts of things, and he found out that it definitely was not Captain Calamai's fault. By the way, Captain Calamai was the last one off the boat. Literally, he was the last one off the boat. When he got back to Genoa, they said he'd walk around, he was single, walk around, he had a housekeeper, just lost, save the people, save the people, save the people. So David Weir, he sent this telegram to him with all the data they found showing that he was not the fault. They were both going too fast in fog, but everybody did that because keep on schedule sort of thing, you know. But so they had delivered it to his house, and his housekeeper took it, and he never opened it, and 3 days later he died. So it was really, and he was, you know, real cavalier. It was his ship for the whole time, 101 crossings. He didn't make the 101. So that's the story. Any questions you might have besides being very hot and tired? Let's see. Well, let me tell you who died. There's 46 people died. 4 on the, no, it was 5 on the Stockholm. But there were, most of them in the first impact. However, things happened like, you know, the one Italian woman had her baby, and there was a French sailor down there. He was going to drop the baby down, talked clearly in Italian. He didn't get it, and it hit and the baby died later on. You know, I was talking about Linda Morgan, didn't I? I never got this about how she was found. No, when the Stockholm pulled out from the Andrea Doria, could you believe this? She was among the twisted steel, and it came out. And there was a Spanish sailor on board, and she was Italian, and he recognized that. So they finally got her, and she survived. She said her sister, her stepsister died, her grandfather died. The parents were injured, but it was really. So to answer your question, I think, let's see, on the Andrea Doria there's 1,700 people, 575. Crew, and 1,134 people. In other words, the limit was 1,200, I think. So the 45 died, and then on the other boat, they were a smaller boat. They had a crew of 200 and passengers of 380 or something like that. And there were the deaths of the. But that was about it. So that's why it's called Saved. And Hopper, William Hopper, when he came up, I don't know if you ever remember Midnight Express. He talked about the American students who were caught in Greece with drugs, and he wrote that book. So he came up for a couple of days, and in fact, he signed my book for me, and so I paid him off. But it's really an amazing thing. And so Pierre, her book, which is very, very good. By the way, if you're looking for a succinct, has all the data and even all of the examinations later on and everything, this is a 17-page document. Susan said I can leave this and you could borrow it for a couple of days. I got 5 copies here. I mean, some of you might be really interested in the factual data here and what they tried to prove and things like that, and what David Moore found and things like that. And she'll have these in the library. Because I copied them. It's not going to be a regular library thing, but make up scripts of paper or something. But I really recommend it because it really is very good. Even about the manufacture. By the way, there's one thing in here that's kind of scary. When she was launched in 1951, they took her for her first maiden voyage. And around Nantucket, they ran into high water, and she had a 28-degree list. They used ballast to straighten it out, but you know, that never came into the legal parts because it seemed that was not the problem. It was really the fact that she shipped water over this. Now I don't know how ships are now, because you know battleships are all airtight. You know they can shut off everything. But I don't know if they're doing more on these ships. You know now, someone has said if you go on cruises, I mean I can't believe the size of these things. I got to know some of the people on our boat, but I mean, it's just huge. In fact, once Mary Ann and I were flying into Washington once, and we were on a Delta, and we were going to land in Washington. We were coming from Florida, and we got into a terrible storm. And it was rocking the boat around, and Mary Ann said to me, "Gee, Tom, is this like the Andrea Doria?" And these people, they flew Joshua. So I kind of keep a low. Any other questions that you might have? Yes.
Yeah, you were a Catholic priest then, but you ended up teaching sociology and psychiatry, and you got married too. Yeah. Did that have a big impact on your life to make a decision later on to do that?
No, it didn't. You know what happened with the biggest decision? When I one time looked out the closed deck, and you had pulled down the windows and the heavy curtains, and I thought, in order for me to get into the water, I'm going to have to clear a keel that's sticking way out there. And I thought, if this boat goes under, I've had it. And it was, you know, you talk about, it's one of the things that even in a hospital, you encounter death. And I said, okay. I just, my training or something, okay, let's do something helpful, you know. So, but later, no, I did. I loved teaching. I was teaching in the seminary. I was in a lot of the. In fact, of all things, I don't know if you guys know the Lady of Angels fire that killed 83 kids in Chicago and changed all the rules of how fire conditions. I was coming home from a class, driving another buddy home, and they called when I dropped my spare. They're looking for priests at. Which is a very Italian parish. So Tom, they want you there. So I got there, and the pastor said, "Oh, Tom, you get out of the morgue." By the way, 8 years later, I was stationed. I was stationed there for 8 years. But I could, because I could talk to the Italian. The kids are all there. So someone said to me, "I've stayed away from you." So it's just kind of a weird thing. So what happened? I was teaching sociology, and the minor seminary there was 5 high school years, so I was teaching the seniors, and it was down there at the John Hancock building downtown on Rush Street. Had people kids from all over the country who was going to the seminary, and so I enjoyed it very much, but I just had a desire to teach at a higher level. So Cardinal Cody was there, and I had a good reputation. Like in the Italian parish, I signed up a class for Italian parents, and they knew drips and bits of Italian, but they could get the whole thing. And I was in the pre-Cana conference, getting people ready for marriage and everything. In fact, if anything, I think I kind of burnt myself out. So I asked Cardinal Cody, kind of get a leave of absence, and I wasn't. To that Marian, I wanted to teach at a good level. Luckily, of the 70 references I sent out, the only one I heard, Barney Smith said, no, we're not tiling, but here's a map of the city and here's a brochure and things like that. Take care. So it comes out we're off a week in the summer. I mean in the winter. And I think it's Tuesday. I'm going to call Barney Smith. Oh, Tom, we're not hiring here. I said, well, how about if I come up on my own? Well, I suppose you could, That's good old Barney. So pretty soon I came in, flew into the city. 4 faculty members were there to meet me. They took me all around. And then I go up to see the chief, Dr. Scholz, and he looks at my resume and he said, this guy went to Gregorian University in Rome. That's the Cadillac of the Catholic Church. I think I got a job. So I started, then he talked me into this they were opening a student village. You got a degree in counseling, which is, when men and women close to each other. He was their little father. So I did that, and I happened to meet my wife at a conference on marriage, by the way. But anyway, so it just, and I think I have been as successful here than I was there. I just I think I had a good reputation for teaching, and things like that. So yes.
Was there a radar on either ship?
Yes, there was radar, but it was elemental radar, and I think there was not a lot of training because they said you could have found distance, speed, and size if on the radar they had. But it was by the way, the captain, his name was Gunnar Halderson, good Swedish name. He never got on the deck. The third officer was doing it. He was not as skilled with the thing, so that's what came out later on. That really, whereas Kalamai was right up there on the bridge the whole time and things like that. So, but that was the big thing in court. How come this radar wasn't working? But they didn't know how to use it. And then I guess Nichols, Johansson especially, he didn't read it at all. He put it on exactly the wrong side, and so they both thought they were going port to port, starboard to starboard, but they weren't. They were doing the opposite. And the story is interesting. Here's the Stockholm, and the story would say that the Stockholm thought it was doing all right, and then it came into the side, and then if you do the other way around, that they said that it was the Andrea Doria that came down. They tried to get away, and it came back and it went in. So, and by the way, one of the things that I recently heard, when the ship pulled out, the Stockholm had stopped in the water, but the Andrea Doria was still swaying and moving. And so when they came out, all that wrought iron came along and scraped the ship, and they don't know what else harmed some of the boats. By the way, it was interesting, I didn't tell you. When we watched the ship go over, one of the things you notice right away, the 8 boats on the port side flew up in the air because they jammed, because you couldn't, in other words, if you brought them down, you couldn't put them in the water, they'd hit the keel. Luckily on the other side, they could get them in the water. So they had enough carriage for 2,000, and they didn't have that. They had 575 crew and 1,130. They had it covered, but it just didn't work. Yes.
The young lady behind you has a question, actually, Tom.
Oh, honey, hi.
How'd you survive on the boat?
With a lot of luck. And I think it's interesting. I'm sure some of you, because of the sickness, you can portion your life. And that was one of the big abortions. Really, what effect it had on me, I don't know. Except I think working in pre-Cana and things like that, I worked with so many couples. Sometimes I'd be the priest, they'd be the couple, they'd be a doctor there, and we talked to 200 couples. And you get to. I have many couples who have named their child after me. So I mean, you just saw marriage up close and personal, and I think maybe this is out of line, But I know a lot of people in St. Joseph's Parish have said, you know, what they might have said before, how come priests can't marry? Yeah, you know, and so.
Did you suffer from post-traumatic stress at all, Tom?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'd wake up at night and the boat would be going around like this. And that lasted, 6 months, I think, you know. I mean, not every night, but I just, you know, see, you know, it's an interesting thing that we're studying, especially you, I'm the chairman of the Board of Health and Human Services, they're studying secondary stress, which is like on our workers and on the families in hospice. Secondary stress, in other words, we're treating the person that's hurting, but they're both hurting, you know. And Mary Ann Shannon, you know, you don't know Mary Ann Shannon, she teaches, she's on our faculty, the nursing faculty, she teaches at Algoma College now. She did a study of 600 of people of the same age who had not had a loss and 600 people who had a loss, and she found a lot more incidents of health problems with those who had suffered secondary stress, you know. So I think we got to think more of that, you know. Even sometimes, you know, those wonderful people out on 3 Mile who, I mean, until I was appointed to the board, I had no idea how much good they're doing out there. What wonderful people they are out there, just to make you cry almost. And you know, I didn't know it. And then the county appoints 2 members to the board. I'm the governor's appointee. But you wonder if the county even knows what's happening out there, you know? And
The reason why I asked is because I was in a terrorist attack in Germany.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And, you know, at the time I was the calmest woman there. And you were kind of worried about your children because they were in another place. It never bothered me until 40 years later.
Is that right?
When they found a bomb in a garage on Maple Street, and I came home and saw all these
You know,
emergency vehicles,
you know,
and I
even-
fell apart, and I could control the panic
Yeah.
attacks
You know,
unless they came at night.
the same with grieving. People
40
have,
years.
you know, they think they're all over in 5 years, 6 years. A panic attack. And of course, it doesn't last forever, but they
It's
say,
awful, though.
my God, I'm right back where I started,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
But you're not. But it's there for a long time. Yeah.
It takes you by surprise, because I just kind of, I felt like I never processed it because I was a busy mother of
Yeah,
a
and
big
that's,
family.
you know, now, like on the police force, they process people, but I mean, it's, and you know, it's interesting, even like the workers there, they process each other. And our director, Chris DeBeal, I mean, it's open door, you're supposed to see your employees 2 times a month. He sees them 10, 15 times a month. You can walk in there. And I think he's aware of this secondary stress, you know. You gotta, and when they have a party, they have a wild time in a good sense, you know. But there's a lot of stress in a situation like that, you know.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
My aunt was on the Ile de France
Oh,
and was pulling people into the ship
oh,
and met the lady named Pierrette.
oh, yes, yes.
Okay, well, she didn't know if she saved her or not, but years later, she was my aunt taught Spanish at Wayne, and Pierrette was in her class and was practicing her Spanish, and so she told the story of the Andrea Doria to my aunt. And my aunt said, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah,
It's funny
amazing.
how it comes around and you meet people that were
I had the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago when I was teaching call me saying, "Hey, time I wanted to tell you there's a lady here, this couple telling you to save their lives." Well, I didn't say him jump in the water. I gave him a life jacket maybe, you know. But it's really interesting. And I've never gone to the reunions. I don't know why. I told you they oh, by the way, Tom, you know, Tom has brought us here something real from the Andrea Doria, Tom Marcus, you know, and he said, so isn't that nice? It says Italia on it. And what else, Tom, did you have here?
Well, there's another book. It's just been printed recently.
Yeah.
It describes all the dives that have been done on the Andrea Doria, and the ship continues to kill because 9 divers have died on it.
Oh yeah, it's you know what they call it, the Mount Everest of the water. It's so dangerous, you know, and the divers keep going down there and going down there, and It really is. Jim, you were gonna go down there, Tom, didn't you?
I was scheduled to go in 1972, but a guy named Gimbel beat me to it, and we were gonna go from the Great Lakes. We were diving and finding wrecks off Whitefish Point, and we were scheduled to go to the Andrea Doria in the fall.
Yeah,
But this other group from the East Coast beat us to it, so we canceled it.
yeah.
But I lost a good friend a couple years ago from downstate that I dove with and got lost inside the Andrea Doria.
Yes, yeah, it's just, it's scary, I say, you know. And then, you know, when you think of, it's really, what would I say, 700 feet, you know, it's what, God, and yet that all that superstructure, you know. I remember we used to get up to first class because no one ever used the ping pong table up there, you know.
But the book that I brought in to show you, I should pull it out, but
Oh,
it's a real nail biter.
Oh,
from the
this one,
beginning to
yeah.
the end.
Deep Descent, Kevin McMurray. And let's see, by the way, this thing I left has a bibliography, but the last book is Care is 2006. So, you know, this is probably more recent than that. And maybe it gets sued. Well, this is 2001, so
Well,
it's probably,
I think it's been updated.
yeah, yeah,
But there more have died on it than the 9 that are described in there.
yeah. Good. By the way, there is a CD that we have here. I got it on
the DVD?
DVD. On
Yeah.
DVD. And then she asked me if I wanted to play this. But this is, you know, they don't have any pictures of what's really going on, and I'm much more interested in that.
This is part of the Secrets of the Dead PBS series. You can see it on your computer, pbs.org. So it's very good. Anyway, and so are you. Thank you.
Yeah,
very much.
thank you very much for.
Thanks everyone for coming and bearing with the heat.